If you're waking up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom, stop blaming your bladder, because your bladder is not what's waking you up. You open your eyes and it's 2:13 in the morning. You get up, shuffle to the bathroom, come back, pull the covers over yourself, and then it happens. Your mind switches on like a light. Thoughts start moving through your head. You replay conversations from yesterday. You start thinking about tomorrow's schedule. You shift onto your left side, then your right, then your back. Sleep refuses to return. Then the whole thing repeats itself at 3:40, maybe again around 5. And by the time your alarm goes off or the morning light comes through the curtains, you feel completely hollowed out before the day has even begun. Does that sound familiar? If it does, you are not alone. Tens of millions of people experience this exact pattern every single night and spend years, sometimes decades, assuming their bladder is the culprit. They restrict their water intake, they cut out coffee, they try bladder exercises, they visit urologists, and still, they wake up at 2, 3, and 4 in the morning feeling like their body is working against them. Today I want to give you the complete picture, not just the quick answer, but the full biological explanation for what is happening inside your brain and body during those nighttime hours, and a comprehensive, practical plan for changing it. Because once you truly understand the mechanism, the solution becomes obvious. And it's simpler than you've probably been told. Part 1. The real reason you wake up. Let's start with the most important fact. Your brain wakes up first. Your bladder comes second. Here is the actual sequence of events. During a normal night of sleep, your brain cycles through different stages, from light sleep into deep sleep and back again, roughly every 90 minutes. These are called sleep cycles. During the deeper stages, your brain is producing slow, restorative brainwaves. Your nervous system is calm. Your body is in full repair mode. Your heart rate is low. Your breathing is slow and regular. And critically, your bladder is relaxed and perfectly capable of holding its contents comfortably through the entire night. But here's what happens in a disrupted system. Instead of staying anchored in those deep stages, your brain keeps drifting toward lighter sleep. And every time it surfaces toward that lighter zone, your conscious awareness begins to return. Your senses start coming back online. And the moment that happens, your brain begins scanning the body for signals. It's almost like a security system doing a check. And whatever signal is present, however minor, now gets amplified. So if there is even a small amount of pressure in your bladder, not a full bladder, not an emergency, just a normal, ordinary amount of fluid, your brain, now partially awake and actively scanning, registers that signal as urgent, as something that demands immediate attention. And suddenly you're fully awake, convinced you absolutely must go to the bathroom right now. But here's the critical question. Would you have woken up if your brain had stayed in deep sleep? In the vast majority of cases, no, you would have slept right through it. Because in deep sleep, your nervous system doesn't overreact to minor signals. It filters them out. It keeps you sleeping. This is precisely why two people can follow the exact same evening routine, same dinner time, same fluid intake, same bedtime, and one sleeps straight through to morning while the other wakes up 3 times. It isn't a bladder capacity difference. It's a brain regulation difference. The brain is the gatekeeper, and when the brain isn't sleeping deeply, everything becomes a reason to wake up. Part 2. What deep sleep actually does to your body. To fully appreciate why this matters, let's talk about what deep sleep is actually doing inside you, because most people have no idea how active and critical this process is. When you enter deep sleep, your body shifts into what the nervous system calls a parasympathetic state. Think of this as your body's rest, repair, and restore setting. In contrast to the sympathetic state, which is your fight-or-flight high alert mode, the parasympathetic state is calm, regenerative, and protective. In deep parasympathetic sleep, your heart rate drops to its lowest point of the day. Your blood pressure decreases, your breathing slows and becomes rhythmic. Your digestive system continues its work quietly in the background. Your immune system ramps up its repair activity. Your brain begins clearing out metabolic waste products that accumulated during the day, a process that researchers have linked to long-term cognitive health and the prevention of neurodegenerative diseases. Your muscles release the tension they've been holding. Growth hormone is secreted, driving cellular repair throughout the body. And your bladder, surrounded by smooth muscle, remains relaxed and non-reactive to the normal amounts of fluid it contains. This is the state your body was designed to spend a significant portion of every night in. And when you achieve it consistently, the effects are profound. You wake up feeling mentally sharp. Your mood is stable. Your energy levels are sustained. Your metabolism functions better. Your immune system is stronger. Your cardiovascular system recovers properly. Your brain consolidates memories and processes emotions from the previous day. But when deep sleep is consistently disrupted, when the brain keeps surfacing into lighter stages, none of those repair processes complete properly. Night after night of fragmented sleep creates a compounding deficit. Your body falls further and further behind on its repair work. Inflammation increases. Stress hormones remain elevated. Your nervous system becomes progressively more sensitized. And paradoxically, the more sleep-deprived you become, the harder it gets to achieve deep sleep. Because an overtaxed nervous system is an excitable nervous system, and an excitable nervous system keeps pulling the brain back toward lighter sleep. It becomes a self-reinforcing cycle, and the nightly bathroom trips are simply one very visible symptom of a much deeper systemic imbalance. Part 3. Why your nervous system stays too active. So why does the nervous system stay elevated in the first place? Why does the brain resist staying in deep sleep? There are several interconnected reasons, and understanding them helps you address the problem from multiple angles simultaneously. Chronic, low-grade stress. This is perhaps the most widespread driver of poor sleep quality in adults. Stress doesn't have to be dramatic to disrupt sleep. You don't need to be in a crisis. The mild, persistent background stress of daily responsibilities, financial concerns, relationship friction, health worries, or even just the constant overstimulation of modern life keeps cortisol, your primary stress hormone, slightly elevated throughout the day and into the evening. Cortisol is supposed to follow a clear daily rhythm, high in the morning to support waking and energy, then declining steadily throughout the day, reaching its lowest point in the late evening so that sleep can deepen. But when ongoing stress keeps cortisol from fully dropping, sleep architecture is disturbed. The brain cannot fully downshift. Light sleep dominates, and every minor signal, including bladder pressure, becomes a wake-up trigger. Blue light and evening screen exposure. Your brain regulates the sleep-wake cycle largely through a hormone called melatonin, which is produced by the pineal gland in response to darkness. Melatonin doesn't knock you out. It signals to the brain that it's time to begin the transition towards sleep. But the blue wavelengths of light emitted by phones, tablets, computers, and LED televisions are almost perfectly calibrated to suppress melatonin production. When you spend 2 hours before bed looking at a screen, you are actively telling your brain that it's still daytime. Melatonin production is delayed or suppressed. The transition into deep sleep is pushed back, and even after you fall asleep, the overall architecture of the night is affected. Deep sleep stages are shallower and shorter than they should be. Caffeine's hidden half-life. Most people know that drinking coffee late in the afternoon is not ideal for sleep. What most people don't know is just how long caffeine actually stays active in the body. The half-life of caffeine, the time it takes your body to eliminate half of the caffeine you consumed, is typically 5 to 7 hours. That means a cup of coffee at 2 in the afternoon still has a significant amount of caffeine circulating in your system at 9 in the evening. And caffeine works by blocking adenosine receptors in the brain. Adenosine is the compound that builds up throughout the day and creates increasing sleep pressure, the biological drive to sleep. When caffeine blocks those receptors, the sleep pressure signal is muted. You may feel tired and still fall asleep, but the depth and quality of your sleep is compromised. Deep sleep stages are reduced. The brain remains more easily disturbed throughout the night. Blood sugar instability. This is a factor almost nobody associates with nighttime waking, and yet it is remarkably common. When blood sugar drops during the night, which can happen if your last meal was too early, too light, or high in refined carbohydrates that caused a rapid spike followed by a crash, the body interprets the drop as a mild emergency. It releases small amounts of adrenaline and cortisol to bring blood glucose back up. Those stress hormones are stimulating by nature. They nudge the nervous system toward its alert state. And if you're already in a light phase of your sleep cycle when this happens, those hormones are enough to push you into full wakefulness. You wake up, feel an urge to urinate, go to the bathroom, and have no idea that a blood sugar fluctuation triggered the whole sequence. Temperature dysregulation. Your core body temperature follows its own circadian rhythm, dropping naturally in the evening to support the transition into sleep and rising again in the early morning hours as part of the waking process. When the sleeping environment is too warm, or when the body is having difficulty thermoregulating, which becomes more common with age and is particularly relevant during hormonal transitions in both men and women, the natural temperature drop is impaired. A body that cannot cool down properly has difficulty entering and maintaining deep sleep. The result is frequent surfacing into lighter stages and all the vulnerability that comes with it. Age-related changes in sleep architecture. As we get older, the proportion of time we spend in deep, slow-wave sleep naturally decreases. Younger adults may spend 20 to 25% of the night in deep sleep. By the time we reach our 60s and 70s, that figure can drop considerably. The brain becomes more easily aroused from sleep. Sleep cycles become less robust. This doesn't mean fragmented sleep is inevitable with age. It means the system requires more deliberate support to function well. The habits and interventions that might be optional in your 30s become genuinely important in your 50s, 60s, and beyond. Part 4. The bladder's role. What's real and what isn't now. Let's talk honestly about the bladder, because it isn't completely irrelevant here. There are genuine bladder-related conditions that can contribute to nighttime waking, and it would be irresponsible not to address them. A condition called nocturia, which is the clinical term for waking to urinate more than once per night, has multiple possible contributors. In men, an enlarged prostate gland can reduce bladder capacity and increase urinary urgency. This is extremely common and worth discussing with a physician if you haven't already. In women, weakened pelvic floor muscles, particularly following pregnancy or in the postmenopausal period, can reduce the bladder's ability to hold comfortably through the night. In both sexes, overactive bladder syndrome, where the bladder muscle contracts involuntarily, can create genuine urgency independent of how full the bladder actually is. Certain medications also increase urine production. Diuretics prescribed for blood pressure or heart conditions are the most obvious example, but other medications also have diuretic side effects that many patients are never warned about. If you're on any medications and experiencing nighttime waking, it's worth reviewing them with your prescribing physician. Diabetes and prediabetes can cause the kidneys to produce larger volumes of urine, contributing to both daytime frequency and nighttime waking. This is one of the early warning signs of blood sugar dysregulation that often goes unrecognized for years. So yes, the bladder and its surrounding systems matter, and if you have specific symptoms like pain during urination, blood in the urine, or sudden dramatic changes in urinary frequency, please see your doctor promptly. But, and this is the essential point, the majority of people who wake up 2 or 3 times a night and attribute it entirely to their bladder are experiencing primarily a sleep regulation problem. The bladder is the symptom, the brain is the source, and addressing only the bladder while ignoring sleep quality is why so many people try every bladder remedy available and still wake up at 2:13 every morning. Part 5. The magnesium connection. Why this mineral changes everything. Now let's talk about the most practical intervention you can start tonight, and why the science behind it is more compelling than most people realize. Magnesium is the 4th most abundant mineral in the human body. It is involved in over 300 enzymatic processes. It plays a critical role in muscle function, nerve transmission, blood sugar regulation, blood pressure management, protein synthesis, and energy production. And it is profoundly important for sleep quality in ways that directly address the mechanism we've been discussing. Here is how magnesium influences sleep at the neurological level. Your brain's primary inhibitory neurotransmitter, the chemical that calms neural activity and allows the nervous system to downshift, is called GABA, which stands for gamma-aminobutyric acid. GABA is essentially the brake pedal for your brain. When GABA activity is sufficient, the brain can quiet itself, transition smoothly into deep sleep, and stay there. When GABA activity is insufficient, the brain remains excitable, sleep is shallow and fragmented, and the system stays on high alert even through the night. Magnesium directly supports GABA function. It binds to GABA receptors and enhances their activity, helping the brain's inhibitory system work more effectively. At the same time, magnesium blocks a receptor called the NMDA receptor, which is involved in neural excitation. By simultaneously supporting the calming system and dampening the excitatory system, magnesium essentially helps your brain find and hold its off switch. Beyond neurotransmitter effects, magnesium also regulates cortisol. Research has shown that adequate magnesium levels help prevent the excessive nighttime cortisol elevations that fragment sleep. It also supports the regulation of melatonin production, helping maintain the proper circadian signaling that tells your brain when to deepen its sleep. And critically for our discussion, magnesium relaxes smooth muscle tissue throughout the body. The bladder wall is composed of smooth muscle. When magnesium levels are adequate and the nervous system is calm, the bladder muscle remains relaxed and non-reactive during sleep. It doesn't send urgent signals to a brain that's deeply asleep because the brain isn't scanning for them and the bladder isn't generating them unnecessarily. Now here is a fact that dramatically increases the relevance of all of this. Studies consistently estimate that a significant portion of the adult population in developed countries, some estimates suggest over 50%, are not getting adequate magnesium from their diet. Modern agricultural practices have depleted magnesium from soil. Food processing removes it. And several common factors in modern life, chronic stress, high sugar consumption, alcohol intake, and certain medications including proton pump inhibitors and some diuretics, actively deplete magnesium from the body. This means that for a large proportion of people experiencing fragmented sleep and nighttime waking, a meaningful part of their problem has a nutritional root, not a pharmaceutical deficiency, not a structural problem, a simple, addressable nutritional gap. The form of magnesium you take matters significantly. Standard magnesium oxide, the form found in most inexpensive supplements, has poor bioavailability. Much of it passes through the digestive system without being absorbed. Magnesium glycinate, where magnesium is bound to the amino acid glycine, is considerably better absorbed and is generally well tolerated without causing the digestive discomfort that higher doses of other forms can produce. Glycine itself also has independent calming effects on the nervous system, making this particular form doubly beneficial for sleep. Magnesium threonate is another well-absorbed form that some research suggests may have particular affinity for brain tissue. A practical starting dose for sleep support is typically in the range of 200 to 400 milligrams of elemental magnesium from a well-absorbed form, taken 30 to 60 minutes before bed. If you are new to magnesium supplementation, starting at the lower end and gradually increasing is a sensible approach. As always, if you have kidney disease or are taking medications, check with your physician before adding any new supplement. Part 6. Dietary sources of magnesium. Food. First, before reaching for supplements, it's worth understanding which foods are rich in magnesium, because food-based magnesium comes packaged with other beneficial nutrients that work synergistically. Pumpkin seeds are among the richest dietary sources of magnesium available. A single ounce provides roughly 150 milligrams. Dark leafy greens, particularly spinach, Swiss chard, and beet greens, are excellent sources. A cup of cooked spinach delivers over 150 milligrams. Dark chocolate with a high cocoa content is a surprisingly good source, with an ounce of 70% dark chocolate providing around 65 milligrams. Legumes, black beans, edamame, kidney beans are reliable contributors. Whole grains like quinoa and brown rice offer meaningful amounts. Almonds, cashews, and Brazil nuts are good sources. Avocado provides both magnesium and potassium, which works alongside magnesium in fluid and electrolyte regulation. Fatty fish like salmon and mackerel contribute usefully to daily intake. Building meals and snacks around these foods over time does more than just address magnesium levels. It shifts your overall dietary pattern toward one that supports better sleep, lower inflammation, more stable blood sugar, and healthier cardiovascular function, all of which feed back into improved sleep quality. Part 7. The supporting habits. That complete the system magnesium is powerful, but it works best as part of a broader approach. Here are the additional changes that compound its effects and address the multiple contributing factors we discussed earlier. Managing fluid timing intelligently. The goal is not to dehydrate yourself in the evening. Chronic underhydration has its own significant health costs and can actually worsen sleep quality. The goal is to front-load your fluid intake earlier in the day. Drink the majority of your daily water before 5 or 6 in the evening. Allow your fluid intake to taper naturally through the late afternoon and evening. Have a small amount of water with your evening magnesium if needed, but avoid drinking large quantities within the final 90 minutes before bed. This simple timing shift reduces the volume of urine your kidneys are producing during the hours you most need uninterrupted sleep, establishing a consistent sleep schedule. Your body's circadian rhythm, the internal biological clock that governs when you feel alert and when you feel sleepy, is highly sensitive to consistency. Going to bed and waking up at the same time every day, including weekends, trains your circadian system to deliver deeper, more consolidated sleep. Irregular sleep timing, staying up late on weekends, sleeping in dramatically, napping at inconsistent times, disrupts circadian signaling and fragments the architecture of your nights. Consistency is one of the highest leverage sleep interventions available, and it costs nothing, creating a genuine wind-down period. Your nervous system doesn't transition from full alert to deep sleep the moment your head hits the pillow. It requires a transition period. In the 60 to 90 minutes before bed, deliberately reduce stimulation. Dim the lights in your living space. This supports the natural rise of melatonin. Put screens away or use blue light filtering glasses if screen use is unavoidable. Avoid emotionally activating content, news, stressful conversations, anxiety-provoking media. Engage instead in activities that invite the nervous system to downshift. Gentle stretching, reading physical books, calm music, light conversation, breathing exercises, or simply sitting quietly. This wind-down period is not a luxury. It is an essential biological preparation for deep sleep. Addressing room temperature. Sleep researchers consistently identify a cool sleeping environment as one of the most reliably effective conditions for deep sleep. The ideal bedroom temperature for most adults falls between 65 and 68 degrees Fahrenheit. If you sleep warmer or run hot at night, particularly common during hormonal changes, consider lighter bedding, moisture-wicking fabrics, a fan for air circulation, or a cooling mattress pad. Even a modest reduction in room temperature can produce measurable improvements in sleep depth and continuity. Evening blood sugar stability. To prevent the nocturnal blood sugar drops that trigger stress hormone release and nighttime waking, pay attention to your last meal of the day. Avoid ending the night with high sugar or highly refined carbohydrate foods that cause a spike followed by a crash several hours later. A small amount of protein and healthy fat in the evening, whether incorporated into dinner or as a light snack, helps stabilize blood glucose through the night. Some people find that a small amount of complex carbohydrate in the evening, oats, sweet potato, legumes, supports the serotonin to melatonin conversion pathway and contributes to better sleep onset and maintenance. Managing stress before it enters the bedroom. Stress is arguably the single most common destroyer of sleep quality in modern life, and it rarely announces itself clearly. Many people are carrying a chronic background load of nervous system activation that they've simply normalized. It feels like their baseline. Developing a daily practice that actively discharges stress is not optional for people who want to sleep well. This doesn't require hours of meditation or elaborate rituals. Even 10 minutes of deliberate diaphragmatic breathing, slow, deep breaths that expand the belly rather than the chest, activates the parasympathetic nervous system and measurably lowers cortisol. Journaling for 5 minutes before bed to write down whatever is on your mind, essentially emptying the mental inbox before sleep, reduces the likelihood of intrusive thoughts activating the brain during lighter sleep phases. Gentle yoga or progressive muscle relaxation in the evening hours helps discharge the physical tension that accumulated throughout the day. Any of these, practiced consistently, compound over time into genuinely meaningful improvements in sleep architecture. Reconsidering caffeine timing. Given the 5 to 7 hour half-life of caffeine, the practical recommendation for people experiencing sleep fragmentation is to move the last caffeine of the day to before noon. This feels extreme to many people initially, but the sleep improvements that typically follow within 1 to 2 weeks are often dramatic enough to make the adjustment feel completely worthwhile. If eliminating afternoon caffeine entirely feels impossible, try moving it progressively earlier in 2-hour increments and observing how your sleep responds. Part 8. How long before you see results? This is a question worth answering honestly, because unrealistic expectations lead to premature abandonment of approaches that would have worked given adequate time. Some people notice improvements in sleep depth and a reduction in nighttime waking within the first 3 to 7 days of taking magnesium glycinate consistently and implementing the supporting habits. This is particularly true for individuals whose sleep disruption is primarily driven by nervous system excitability and magnesium insufficiency. For others, especially those whose disrupted sleep has been a long-standing pattern, years or even decades, the improvement is more gradual. The nervous system has been operating in an elevated state for so long that recalibrating it takes consistent, sustained effort over several weeks. The circadian rhythm needs time to stabilize into a new, more consistent pattern. The body needs time to replenish cellular magnesium stores. The habits need time to become automatic rather than effortful. A reasonable expectation is meaningful improvement within 2 to 4 weeks of consistent implementation, with continued gradual improvement over the following months as the system recalibrates more deeply. Progress is rarely perfectly linear. You may have better nights followed by nights that feel like a step backward. This is normal. What matters is the overall trajectory over weeks, not the experience of any single night. Tracking your experience helps. Keep a simple sleep log. Note what time you went to bed, approximately how long it took to fall asleep, how many times you woke up, what time you woke up for the day, and a simple 1 to 10 rating of how rested you feel. Reviewing this log weekly reveals patterns and progress that are easy to miss night by night. Part 9. When to seek professional evaluation. Everything discussed in this video is appropriate for the most common presentation of nighttime waking, the kind driven primarily by sleep cycle disruption and nervous system excitability. But there are situations where professional evaluation is genuinely warranted and should not be postponed. If you wake up feeling as though you've been gasping, or if your partner reports that you snore heavily and appear to stop breathing during sleep, please discuss this with your doctor promptly. Sleep apnea, a condition in which the airway partially or fully collapses during sleep, repeatedly interrupting breathing throughout the night, is remarkably common, particularly in middle-aged and older adults, and has serious cardiovascular consequences when left untreated. It is also one of the most effectively treatable sleep conditions available, and treatment often produces dramatic, life-changing improvements in sleep quality and daytime function. If your nighttime waking is accompanied by significant leg discomfort, an irresistible urge to move the legs, crawling or aching sensations that worsen at rest and improve with movement. This may indicate restless legs syndrome, which has specific treatment approaches distinct from general sleep hygiene.